Hello, everyone. It's your old pal, Mick Sullivan, and I want to let you know that I am coming to perform in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on Saturday, October 4th, and I hope that you can make it. More specifically, I'll be in the Pittsburgh suburb of Mount Lebanon, thanks to the Historical Society of Mount Lebanon. I am really excited, so come join us for a live performance on Saturday, October 4th at 4 p.m. It's gonna be a blast. Stories, laughs, music, and a book signing to boot. It will take place at the Mellon Middle School Auditorium, and we will have fun. The Past and the Curious live in Pittsburgh area. You can find the details and a link to tickets at thepastandthecurious.com and also at lebohistory.org/events. That's lebohistory.org/events. See you on October 4th, Pennsylvania.
If you're a nurse or future nurse, you know how challenging and rewarding this career can be. Hi there, I'm Nurse Mo, creator of the Straight A Nursing Podcast. I'd love for you to join me every Thursday as I teach nursing concepts and share tips to help you succeed in school and at the bedside. Each episode breaks down often complex information so it's easy to understand, so you can feel more confident whether you're taking an exam or taking care of patients. So subscribe to the Straight A Nursing Podcast, and I'll see you on Thursday.
You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Welcome to the Past and the Curious. Here's Mick Sullivan.
Aw, thanks, Ben. That's right, I'm Mick Sullivan, and welcome to The Past and the Curious. This is the 109th episode of The Past and the Curious, and this episode is about handwriting, but it's not really about handwriting, just both of the stories involve handwriting. One person whose handwriting is involved is a man named Ely Parker, who was a Native American man. He was indigenous, Tonawanda Seneca. And he played a really pivotal role in the American Civil War, but his story is big and broad, and he did a lot of really interesting stuff, somebody we should all know more about. But before that, we will begin with a story about Abraham Lincoln. We've done Abraham Lincoln a lot, but he's got a lot of really great stories in his life. And this is about his path, his train ride to the inauguration when he was to become president, and a very important speech that he carried with him, or rather, his son Robert carried with him, at least for a while. The day before his 52nd birthday, Abraham Lincoln left his home in Springfield, Illinois, to head to Washington, D.C., where he would take the oath of office to become the President of the United States. Over the following 12-day stop-and-start train ride, Lincoln would roll through towns filled with curious onlookers. He would shake thousands of hands, make formal speeches in fancy reception halls, and make dozens more less formal speeches from the back of his train car. And as you might remember from previous episodes of The Past and the Curious, he'd also have to dodge potential assassins on the trip. But he also made sure to stop and meet the young girl who convinced him to grow that famous beard on his face. But perhaps most importantly, he would use this time to finish his inaugural speech. This was the speech the entire country was waiting to hear. People were so eager, in fact, that Lincoln chose to break with tradition and deliver the speech before the part of the day when he was actually sworn in. But until that moment, he had to keep everything secret. If it leaked to the press or it was reprinted, it could change things profoundly. No one knew what he would say. No one knew how he would address the huge problems bubbling over in America at that moment. Many slaveholding states had already seceded. They left the Union following the election that he won. It was safe to assume that more would follow as they sought to protect their state's right to enslave other human beings. This could be the end of the United States. So all along the way, people were trying to get a read on what Lincoln was actually thinking, what he might say about secession, what he might say about slavery, or about the potential of war. So he was careful not to give his speech away. Mary Lincoln, Abe's wife, did not leave on the same train from Springfield. She would meet them somewhere along the route. But he did have his old pal and self-appointed bodyguard, a Virginia man named Ward Hill Layman. Ward was the kind of friend everybody needs and deserves. A strong, loyal, banjo-playing friend. One of Lincoln's great joys was the sound of Ward's 5-string serenades. And who can blame him? In addition to the bodyguard banjo man and a whole bunch of full-grown adults, Mr. Lincoln's 17-year-old son, Robert Todd Lincoln, was also along for the ride. As they traveled east on the rails, making stops in larger cities for speeches and hotel stays, Robert was given a big responsibility. He took care of Lincoln's inaugural speech, a work in progress that was constantly fiddled with. The precious pieces of paper were covered in Abraham's script. Words were crossed out, notes were handwritten in margins, and it was kept in a black bag, locked, and to which Abraham had the key.
Robert, this speech is very important. It can't get out. It can't get lost. Can I trust you with it?
Sure thing. I won't let it out of my sight. I'll guard it with my life.
Well, I do value your life more than the speech, but please don't lose it.
Got it, Pops. Speech important. Don't lose it.
As the train made its way from Springfield, Illinois to the state line and then into Indiana, it seemed to stop every few miles. And each time, Lincoln would step out onto the platform at the rear of his train car and address the crowds, which gathered in large numbers at every small town. In a time before microphones, this meant Lincoln had to raise his voice to be heard. And as the trip was 12 days long, by the time he made it to Washington, he might be left with no voice at all. That might make delivering his inaugural speech difficult. Nevertheless, he addressed everyone. Sometimes, as he was mid-sentence, the train would just start moving, cutting him off as they left the train station to keep the tight schedule. The first night was spent in Indianapolis, Indiana. The group stayed in a hotel which was filled with curious people hoping to get a look at the tall president-to-be. But it wasn't straight to bed for anyone. He had to attend a huge reception, where once again he had to speak, without a microphone, to a huge gathering of people. Despite the lack of amplification, everyone was listening. They wanted clues as to how he felt, how he intended to handle the crisis of the seceding states, and what his truest feelings were. Reporters would jot down his words to be reprinted across the country by morning time. Robert chose not to attend this event. He had a few buddies with him, and this sounded boring. They instead chose to go out on the town to meet other young people of Indianapolis. After speeches and applause and music and other stuff, Abe made it back to the crowded hotel first. And once through the throng of people and safely back in his room, his thoughts returned to the important matter confronting him. His inaugural speech. Yes. Where was it? But the speech was nowhere to be found. He grew panicked and somewhat impatient. Terrible thoughts raced through his mind. Until Robert finally returned.
Oh, hi, Dad.
Where is the speech? Is it secret? Is it safe?
The what? Oh, yeah, the speech. I left it at the front desk. Seemed safer than taking it out on the town with me. The guy behind the counter seemed pretty cool.
What?
The dialogue is fake, but this is real. Without hesitation, Abe tore out of the room. The flash of the wildly swinging door and the immediate and jarring frenzied rush of the long, lanky president-to-be shocked the crowds who filled the hallways trying to get near Lincoln. They got more than they bargained for. They watched as his long legs carried him quickly to the front desk. He didn't hesitate there either. Instead, he leapt over the desk in a single bound like a hurdle on a racetrack. Coming down hard on the other side, Lincoln landed in a pile of bags. Most of the bags in the pile that broke his fall looked nearly identical to his own. How was he to know which one was his? Or even if his was still here? Plenty of people wanted to get their hands on it. Crowds of hotel onlookers now gathered to watch the new, exciting spectacle unfold. Lincoln temporarily suppressed the embarrassment that he would soon be feeling, and he pulled a little key from his pocket. And then he started turning locks on bag after bag after bag. As is the case with many cheap locks today, his key opened most of the bags he picked up. Unfortunately, none of those had his speech inside. Socks? Ugh. Bottles? Grrr. Books? Medicine? Oh, where is it? No speech. Unfazed by half a dozen failed bags, he reached for another to try once again. Unlock. Open. Breathe. Relief washed over him as he peered inside the next bag and found, once again, the precious paper he had so carefully considered and covered in his own handwritten words. Then the embarrassment set in as he looked around the crowd who had watched the whole matter unfold. There was probably some anger too, or at least some disappointment to go with it. Robert, you will no longer be in charge of the speech's safekeeping.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The rest of the journey was just as eventful, but those are other stories for other days. A few of them we've already covered on this show. The written speech, edited over that same trip, did make it to Washington, D.C. with Mr. Lincoln. And there it was read, without a microphone, by Abraham in the last minutes before becoming president. Though someone in the very back might have had a hard time hearing his words that day, the messages endure, and they can still be known to us today. And we might do well to listen to the last words he delivered that day in 1861 to his nation, which was divided and further being torn by mistrust and hate.
We are not enemies but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic cords of memory, stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone all over this broad land, will yet swell the chorus of the Union, when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature.
We should always seek and welcome the better angels of our nature. Hello, fellow grown-ups. Is it hot where you are? 'Cause it's hot where I am. Seasons don't matter when it comes to education, though, and whether your child is learning to catch up, stay sharp, or get a head start, IXL Learning can make learning a seamless part of summer. IXL is an award-winning online learning platform that fits perfectly into your homeschool routine, even during summer. It offers interactive practice across math, language arts, science, and social studies, adapting to your child's level to provide the right challenge at the right time. IXL helps kids stay curious, motivated, and confident, even outside of the traditional classroom. IXL is a perfect homeschool companion. The interactive practice, step-by-step video tutorials, and easy-to-navigate layout make it a natural fit for your summer homeschooling goals. It's also personalized and flexible, so there's no rigid structure. Whether your child is reviewing third grade math or jumping into the sixth grade reading, IXL meets them where they are and lets them move at their own pace. It also keeps kids motivated. Between the awards, challenges, and little moments of celebration, IXL makes it easy to keep learning light and engaging, even in the summer heat. And oh boy, is it hot. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And the Past and the Curious listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/curious. So visit IXL.com/curious to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price.
Calling all kids in the car. Brittany and Meredith here from the chart-topping Family Road Trip Trivia Podcast. Are you dreading another silent car ride with the fam? we've got the cure. 3 rounds of fresh trivia every single week. Movies, music, even science and Disney. We've got something for every trivia buff in the car. No more crickets chirping on those long journeys. The Family Road Trip Trivia Podcast is your secret weapon for connecting and laughing with kids of all ages. Teens, toddlers, adults, it doesn't matter. Spark their curiosity and challenge their brains with every episode. New episodes drop weekly wherever you get your podcasts. Search for the Family Road Trip Trivia Podcast and turn those car rides into epic adventures.
The Past and the Curious. It's You Have 30 Seconds, and here comes Sylvie Pernis to tell us about someone who pretty sure had good handwriting.
Charles M. Schultz was born on November 26, 1922 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Charles grew up and is an only child in St. Paul. Charles' career started with the publication of his panel cartoon Little Folks in the St. Paul Pioneer Press in 1947. The strip was sold to United Feature Syndicate in 1950. They renamed the strip Peanuts. Charles never liked this name. 1975, Peanuts celebrated 25 years. It has carried about 1,400 U.S. and 175 foreign newspapers with 90 million readers. Charles died in his sleep on February 12, 2000. His final Sunday strip appeared a day later around the world. Peanuts outlived him, if only for a day. That was his way.
Dang, Sylvie, you got a lot of information in there really clearly. Hats off. And I love Charles Schultz. I grew up reading the comics. I grew up watching the shows. That was great. That was really great to learn all of that. I had forgotten much of that, so thank you. And I didn't know some of it also. Sylvie, great job. If anyone else out there has a You Have 30 Seconds, well, you have 30 seconds to tell me a story, and let's see if you can cram as much information in as Sylvie Pernis did. Great work. Just send a voice recording to hello@thepastandthecurious.
It's quiz time. It's quiz time. It's quiz time. Time.
All right, people, it is time for a handwriting quiz. I'm not going to test you on your handwriting. You can just do the work in your head. No need to write anything down. But here we go. Question number 1. People who write with their left hands make up about 10% of the world's population. Do you know the first American president to be a known left-hander? James Garfield didn't live long. He was assassinated 4 months into his presidency. Guess who was with him when it happened? Robert Todd Lincoln. That guy's everywhere, I tell you. But James was not only left-handed, it's believed that he was actually ambidextrous. He could write with both hands. Now, some people say he could write Greek in one hand and Latin in the other at the same time, but I'm not so sure I believe that. I haven't seen any solid evidence, nor do I understand why anyone would need to do such a thing. Anyway, question number 2. William Shakespeare, one of the most important people in literature. He left us a lot of writing, but not so many signatures. How many verified Shakespeare signatures are there in the world today? There are 6. Or it's believed there are 6. They are all from legal documents, but as is the case with just about anything, there are plenty of people who question if those are even real. But if you do find a Shakespeare signature that is real, rest assured you are sitting on a gold mine. Okay, the third and final question. The earliest known form of writing came from Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago. Do you know what it is called? Cuneiform, that's what it's called, and it was a type of writing. It's actually teeny tiny writing that is etched into clay tablets. It was used to record the Sumerian language in what is now Iraq. How'd you do? 3 for 3? I knew you could do it. Ely S. Parker was a man who lived between 2 worlds, and he had terrific handwriting. It's beautiful. Yes, thanks. Yes, his regular everyday writing was great, but when he had the occasion to write something important, something special, it seems he took extra care to make sure his script was truly exquisite. It was one of the things that people noticed about him.
That is really nice handwriting.
Yes, thanks. Ely was born in 1828 in a cabin near a waterfall in eastern New York State. As a baby, he was given the name Hassanawanda. Ely was Seneca, which was another thing people noticed about him. His parents were both from important families from the Tonawanda Seneca, people indigenous to the American continent who had lived on the land long before anyone from anywhere else arrived. For work, his father was a miller. He operated a mill that ground grain and corn into flour and meal, which was important work for feeding people. He was also a Baptist minister and a chief among the Tonawanda Seneca, and he also fought on the American side during the War of 1812. His mother was related to some of the most important leaders in Seneca history, including Red Jacket, a leader who wore a peace medal given to him by George Washington. That gift was later passed on to Ely. When he was a boy, his elders decided Ely would enter American culture. It was in this way that he lived in two worlds. He went to European-influenced schools and found his way into peer groups that had lived very different lives from his own. Ely quickly proved himself to be gifted in the sciences and an eloquent speaker, who also happened to have great handwriting. Yes, thanks. He met presidents and governors and congressmen when he was still just a teenager. It was among everyone's hopes that he would work to protect the lands and the people of his Seneca nation, who were considered independent from the United States, even though they lived in part of eastern New York State. This land was set up as a reservation by the American government, but it always seemed to have a way of shrinking. Becoming a lawyer was one way that he could help, so he studied law for 3 years and was clearly qualified. His brilliance was obvious to anyone who met him. But when he tried to pass the bar exam, the state test to become a lawyer, he was denied. Not because he didn't do well. He was told he did not meet one qualification: citizen. He was Seneca, and indigenous people were not citizens. They were considered independent nations who lived within the borders of America at that time. Disappointed, but undaunted, he trained as an engineer and soon found important work to help with updates to the Erie Canal. And he still found a way to protect and enlarge the land of his people. The American government had set aside for them a larger plot of reservation land in Kansas. But that was a completely different part of the world from New York. Why would the Seneca want to move there? They wanted to remain in their ancestral land. So he worked successfully with a lawyer friend on a plan to sell the Kansas land and then use the profit to buy more land in New York for the Seneca. Brilliant. As he grew into adulthood, he earned a reputation for his great work as an engineer. And this led to a job as supervisor of government projects in Galena, Illinois. And it was here that he would meet a man who would change his life forever. But it wasn't fireworks and fanfare at first between the men. Ulysses S. Grant was not really a friendly guy to strangers. At the time, he was working as a clerk in a leather goods store his father owned, and often when customers walked in, he hid in the back. Not a good salesman. Who could have known that he'd be the head of the Union Army in the Civil War? Who could have known he'd be president? Probably not Ely, but somehow they became friends. Was it from a discussion after Ely filled out his name on a receipt, perhaps?
Wow, that's nice handwriting.
Yes, thanks. I know. Or perhaps the friendship came as a result of a discussion around middle initials? Would you look at that? Ely S. Parker, Ulysses S. Grant. We're middle initial twinsies. My S stands for Samuel. What does your S stand for? Wait, let me guess. Sebastian, Spencer, Samson, Santiago. Ulysses Sylvester Grant. That's it, right? Sylvester?
No, nothing. It stands for nothing.
What do you mean? It's got to stand for something.
Nuh-uh. My name is actually Hiram Ulysses Grant.
So the S is...
It stands for nothing.
Well, where did it come from?
It was a clerical error in the Army.
And you just left it?
It doesn't really exist. I don't want to talk about the S anymore.
But you're Ulysses S. Grant. The S is clearly part of your name, but it's not actually part of your name?
I can't really explain it.
I'm confused.
Me too. Do you want to buy the satchel or not?
Oh, wait, is that a clue? Does it stand for satchel?
Ulysses Satchel Grant? What? That doesn't even... Just...
Okay, well, we're friends now, so I'll see you around, Satchel. However it went down, it was sometime in 1860 that they first met. Grant had been able to pay off his debts and carve a place for he and his family in the Galena community. Within a year, the Civil War would begin. By the end of the war, that clerk, who didn't want to talk to any customers, would be the commanding general of the entire United States Army. President Lincoln had a hard time finding the right guy to lead troops, but he eventually found his leader in Grant, and it was Grant's efforts that largely led to the end of the Civil War. Ely Parker wanted to serve in the Army as well, like his father during the War of 1812. But once again, he was not welcome. As a native Seneca man, he was told this was not his fight, and that he would not be accepted into the Union Army. Disappointed, but undaunted again, he returned to engineering. But his friendship with Grant remained, and when Grant had risen to leadership, he wrote a letter on behalf of his friend Ely S. Parker. Before long, the middle initial pals were reunited. After time working as an engineer for the Army, Ely joined Grant's inner circle, the team who helped day to day, offered advice, and took over any projects that Grant needed to delegate. Look at us, the S team, back together again. I'll call you Satch, and you can call me Mr. P. And I pity the fool who messes with the S team.
Nobody messes with the S's.
Quite often, it was Ely who wrote official communications and letters on General Grant's behalf. He was great with words, and then there was that incredible handwriting. Yes, thanks. That handwriting came in handy as the Civil War drew to a close. Robert E. Lee, general of the Confederate Army, and his troops, in defiance of the Union, had fought bloody battles for nearly 5 years. The country was weary, and families everywhere were devastated. But in April of 1865, things finally seemed to be ending. Grant had Lee and his soldiers on the ropes, as they say, and the Confederate efforts to split the United States and to preserve slavery was almost over. Lee sent a messenger to Grant requesting a meeting and an agreement for surrender. Robert E. Lee knew the war was lost, and they chose a house in the Virginia town known as Appomattox Courthouse to meet. On April 9th, 1865, Lee and his team were in the parlor of the McLean House for about a half an hour before Grant and his team arrived. Ulysses S. Grant walked in with muddy boots and a cigar in his mouth. With him was his own team of soldiers and officers. Among them was a 21-year-old Robert Todd Lincoln, who would soon tell his father firsthand of the day. Also with him was Ely S. Parker. And there is a story around this moment that is often repeated, one that Ely himself seems to have recalled, but it's not 100% proven or 100% agreed upon. But it goes like this. As Ely S. Parker began shaking hands with all of the men in the parlor, Robert E. Lee was struck by the sight of him, perhaps not expecting to see an indigenous man with Grant. After a pause, they shook hands, and Robert E. Lee said, "I'm glad to see one real American here." To which Ely is said to have replied, "We are all Americans." The surrender document from that day is one of the most important pieces of history from the Civil War. In the hours before the fateful moment, Ulysses S. Grant and Ely S. Parker worked together on drafting the terms. Grant wrote it out on the table for Lee to sign, and Lee had some revisions. But Grant's writing was chicken scratch compared to others. When it came time for an official copy, the job went to Ely S. Parker. Ely remained with the Army until 1869, when Grant was elected President of the United States of America. Ely then joined Grant's cabinet, where he served as Commissioner of Indian Affairs. He was the first indigenous man to hold that office. Well, all right. Thank you all so much for listening to episode 109 of The Past and the Curious. Those were really important stories to me. I was glad to share them this month. Hey, stick around because there's a song that I have coming up at the end for some special Patreon patrons. But I want to thank some people first. My son, Ben, who you heard at the top of the show, and my son, Owen. Owen Sullivan made his voice debut. You've heard him on here before, but this was the first time that he voiced a character. So good job, Owen. I'm proud of you. And also, you heard another voice that wasn't mine on the show, and that is the voice that belongs to my friend Nate DeFort. You might know Nate from other podcasts. He was involved with the show Reach, and one of our favorite shows, Unspookable. He's producer on that, and I love working with him. He's a good kids listen pal, and he's got a great voice. So he did the Abraham Lincoln bit. Thanks, Nate. You all should check out his shows. Real quick, if you are in the Pittsburgh area and you're listening to this in real time, I'll be there early October 4th. This is 2025, I'm saying. I'm super excited. This will be my third Commonwealth because I'm from Kentucky. It's Commonwealth. Massachusetts, been to Boston many times to perform. That's Commonwealth. Pennsylvania is a Commonwealth, which leaves a fourth Commonwealth, Virginia. I got to get to Virginia next. So anybody out there from Virginia want to help me set something up? Let's talk, okay? Then I can cross all the Commonwealths off of my list. Okay, so some Patreon people to thank. Catherine Sage, thank you so much for your support. I'm glad that you are out there. And also, I have two families, independent of one another, from Australia, who I have to thank, and I'm super excited to do that. First off, Ava Skeels in Avalon Beach, which is in New South Wales, Australia. Hello from Kentucky. I'm so glad you enjoy the show, and this gives you a window into history. It's great to know you're out there, so hello. And probably not far away is Titan and Edlin in Canberra, Australian Capital Territory, which I know is in that same region. So hello, Titan and Edlin. I'm so glad that you are out there and you listen as well. Yeah, greetings from Kentucky. It's awesome. All right. Hello, goodbye, all of that. And last, but certainly not least, are Rosie, Maggie, and Ben. I appreciate your Patreon sponsorship at the level that you sponsored. And also, we met in person. I was in St. Louis, where you're from, didn't see you. Then you came to Louisville the next week, and we did see each other. And it was great to hang out and get to know you and show you around the museum. And wrote a song. And, I wrote it from the perspective of your cats. So I hope you enjoy. And everyone else out there, too. Thanks.
I am Apollo. And I am Artemis. We are siblings. We are cats. And every day, this is what we see. Rosie, Maggie, and Ben. They wake up, they do stuff, they do it again.
Rosie, Maggie, and Ben.
Goofing and learning and playing with friends. You can't put our friend Rosie in boxes. She stays busy drawing love and horses and foxes. Then we go watch Maggie and she seems so mathematic. She makes it look easy, solving problems automatic. And we watch Ben read mythology from Greece, but he bounces to history and Minecraft with ease. Rosie, Maggie, and Ben. They wake up, they do awesome stuff, and do it again. And that's awesome. It's really cool. But could you feed us, please?
We've all been there. You're standing in a museum staring at a painting and all you can think is, I don't get it. To me, knowing the story behind an artwork is a huge part of knowing how to look at it. I'm Amanda, the host of the Art of History podcast, where we view history through the lens of some really great works of art. Each episode, we dive deep into the bigger picture behind some familiar and maybe not so familiar pieces. Check out Art of History now wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you looking for a podcast that your whole family can enjoy that asks the deep philosophical questions like, do trees fart?
If you are, then you'll love Tumble, a science podcast for kids. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Marshall. Join us as we explore stories of science discovery, from butts to animals, dinosaurs, astronomy, and everything in between.
You'll love these stories, and you'll learn something new.
Find and follow Tumble Science Podcast for Kids wherever you get your podcasts, or at sciencepodcastforkids.com.